Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And I'm happy from sunny Spain, we have Christoffel Sneijders. Hello. I think I just said the name wrong. It's Sneijders.
Nou, this Sneijders. You did a good job, Philip. And
Good.
as this is a Dutch name, it's almost impossible for any other country to pronounce. So I've heard all the versions up to now. And always say, my dad would have been Jackson. Then everybody would have known it or something like that.
Well, I always enjoy when names are a little bit interesting, even if I legendarily make it wrong. But it's always, I love when things are interesting. Well, this will be an interesting conversation. But nevertheless, I would like, you've written books and everything, people know you. But there'll be new audience. There's always, hopefully, new audience. So please
Absolutely.
be so kind and a little bit present your background, what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
Absolutely, Philip. Of course, and I hope a lot of new people will join you because I listened to your podcast and you're doing an amazing work. That's why I also reached out to you. I thought, okay, it's not that a lot of people say, why don't you go for all the big audience? I said, no, I like to go to podcast where the heart of the person is in. And for me, your heart is in your podcast. And I think that's really grateful. Now, who am I? Christoffel Sneijders. And if you like to do it in German, it's Sneijders. It's all good. So
No.
I'm now, currently I'm working in different jobs. One, I'm a master certified coach. And I do coaching, for businesses, CEOs. I'm also clinical psychotherapist, hypnotherapist. So I work with people who have PTSD, anxiety, stress, depressions, and other kind of things. I'm also a visiting professor at the business school, IE, and at the University Georgetown, with a huge project in Qatar. And I'm also educating coaches in the 3 brains intelligence, how you really can make the difference and the change. And that was also why I reached out to you, because I heard your podcast and thought this is really something I hope your people would enjoy and love to hear, because it helps that link between, hey, where am I now and where should I be? We all are born to be something amazing, all of us, and somewhere life stops us. And how can we get there? And if you think that, hey, how did I came there? I once studied commercial engineering because I have a beautiful logical mind. And after almost 10 years and some misheaps and marketing and software engineering, I really went into the leadership and training. And there I found my real passion. How can you help people to make that step? And after 10 years working for the number 1 in Europe, I got a burnout. I was a partner, was just divorced, had 3 kids, had a not so pleasant divorce, was leading a team, was coaching people, was doing my sales, was delivering training, was doing still water polo and running. And you can hear there was some little time left for sleep, for yourself. So somewhere I thought, I'm extremely fit as doing water polo. Nothing can help, nothing can stop me until I hit the really hard wall and the spirit, the mind, the body said, okay, this is enough. That propelled me right away from, hey, if I'm already 10 years in the Champions League of leadership and coaching, then I'm missing something. I'm doing something wrong, because otherwise, or my colleagues or I should have seen this coming. So I stepped right away in what can help me. So I took a lot of kind of self-help in all different ways, from somatic to the psychiatrist steps from, hey, what am I missing? And I came aware actually in the somatic part, I was disconnected. I was walking, winning to believe, and on a logic that I can do it. I was not connected with really my internal feelings. So I learned right away, I started to learn from, hey, how does somatic healing work? And from there also NLP to see, hey, how can we make those mind switches? I emigrated to Australia with my, on that moment, partner. We built a beautiful dream house where we were supposed to live, and with half a year she ran away with a firefighter. You cannot beat a firefighter body-wise, but having said that, leaving everything in Europe behind and leaving to Australia, the other side of the world, leaving my kids behind, my work behind, everything behind, it threw me, or I threw myself, actually in you could say in depression. I really went down the rabbit hole again. And that really made me aware, hey, I'm going down a rabbit hole again. So I'm still missing something. Because I thought with all the things I learned, I would do something. In the same time, I became a therapist because it was the easiest way actually to get money. Because after our divorce, I had an issue. And I started to work with people. In the same moment, I started, okay, what am I missing? And I learned much more about the trauma work from Peter Levine, went to even do more other kind of trainings. And in that process of learning the real trauma work, what I already knew logically from the somatic work, the body stores actually really all the emotions, the fascia. And my question was, where is then actually the decisions made? Because we can say the body stores the trauma, but where in the body does it then make a decision to come out? Somebody should be in charge. And it's not my logical head, because my logical head says it doesn't make sense to feel depressed. So then I hit, and I have to say, thanks to Lynn Taggart in her book, The Intention Experiment, she writes in there, we have 3 brains, a heart and a gut brain, scientifically proven. And on that moment, I said, oh, wow. If that's true, it answers the question, maybe why I'm still partly stuck and cannot help myself. Because one of my brains is probably still not aligned with it. And from there, I started to investigate it, research it, work with, because I was also in that moment teaching actually clinical hypnotherapy, psychotherapy. I had my own school. I was, you could say, almost using my students as guinea pigs, of course with concession, van, does it work? So say that we just don't talk to the unconscious mind, but we talk really specific to the heart or the gut. Does it make a difference? And what is actually the neurotransmitters they are releasing? How is the energy working in that? Because I also became in that moment a Reiki master. How does it all connect somewhere? And from there, I am, a couple of years later, I found a girlfriend, or I met my current girlfriend in Spain. Australia, Spain are a little bit far away from each other, as you know, Philipp. I'm living in Austria. And when COVID hit, I was in Europe. COVID, based on that, Australia decided to close the borders 2 years. So my business died a slow death because I could not go back. I was stuck in Europe in a pleasant way, but also an unpleasant way business-wise. So after half a year, actually, not playing the victim, but at least thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I decided I will stay with my girlfriend in Spain. I will not go back to Australia anymore. And I really set up my current business in what I'm doing now. So that's a story from where I am now and how I got there. And what I love also, that, I don't know, did you ever read the book from Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, Philip?
Not that I can remember, but that's nothing unusual with me. But I, of course, I know the book.
Okay, but what I loved from the book when I read it is the same as Synchronicity from Deepak Chopra. It has somewhere the idea, not everything we do has something is in destiny, but a lot of important things have somewhere a connection. Based on the quantum physics, entanglement theory, we can attract each other. And I see life, say we get opportunities, or we get somewhere things in life, and the choice is, what do you do with them? And that really focuses me. So actually, when I was browsing through what kind of podcasts are there interest to listening, I actually came up to yours. And yours is not ranked number 1 somewhere. Was it?
No.
Why do I see this one? I thought, okay, let's listen to it. I said, hey, wow, that's interesting. And for me, it sounds like, hey, this is how also life sometimes evolves. You get somewhere a signal and think, okay, what should I do with it? And I'm really glad I did, because otherwise I would not be here. So this is where I'm coming from, and this is how I do my work.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for all these kind words. But basically, I started last October. It would be hard to be number 1 already. But just give me a little bit of time. We're getting there.
I give you another 3 months, Philip. I'm kidding.
we're getting there, and this is growing very, very nicely. So
it is interesting. So within half a year, somewhere I hit on your podcast. And then I'm looking at it, and I see that you're now on one of those sites, so we could connect, and I think, wow, life is so amazing in that part.
Absolutely. It's an interesting experience, especially because I started it out of pure fun and pleasure, because I like talking with people about spirituality. And I basically said, well, if anyway, that's what I love to do, why don't I do it, record it, and other people can enjoy the conversations as well. And then the whole thing got a life on its own. So this is how, how life is changing and transforming, and we can never plan for it and we can never calculate it. But I'm still trying to process all the unbelievable information you gave in your introduction. And it's like basically 10 podcasts already.
Sorry, Philip.
I'm working on it. Just give me my hard drive is not that.
I know,
quick.
but my current girlfriend says, "Oh wait, Chris, you love to have multiple lives. You already had multiple lives. How many do you like to have in this lifetime?"
The thing is, I'm actually not that different in a way. If you would read if I would start with my life story now, you will realize, oh my God, there are more crazy ones out there. But let's sort things. Let's go backward forwards, because I think that will help us.
Yeah.
Right now, you have this consulting business, just coaching business. I mean, most probably do 10 other things, but the main thing is that you help people with this free brain system of yours to better understand, hey, what the hell is going on, and which is the dominant problem, which is the dominant quality, and how we can combine these things. There's my first question. What are like the most regular clients? Are they CEOs? Is this everybody, man, female, older, younger? So who's the one who is open to this kind of a knowledge?
I would say two things. Because I come out of the business world, I see CEOs, managers, and leaders as coaching. And because I'm a master certified coach in the International Coaching Federation. You have 60,000 coaches there in the moment. 2,000 are master coaches. I'm one of them. And so business-wise, I'm seen as top-notch in the coaching world. There I still use it, but say not in a spiritual way, because the average leader, manager, CEO is not something like, let's talk about quantum physics. And let's keep it real, Chris. You have profit and loss, they're facts. The other part is, say, individual clients who just say, I like to go from A to B. I have some things in my life that happened, PTSD, and now one of my clients, let's say, that made impacts on me is, say, I'm working with a beautiful lady who has a cancer in her throat and has something like, I know it's a physical manifestation, but if I look at my own life, there are so many, say, you can call it, she calls them traumas, that somewhere gives a disbalance in my body. So I'm always in a fight or flight response. Please help me. And then the three brains also right away made sense, because logically, she can perfectly describe, because she also went to psychologists, what happened to her and why it happened and how she should think about it. But her heart is still missing, say, the connection with her mom, because her mom was, say, not the most gentle person in this world. And incompassionate. Probably mom did everything with the best intentions, but not as the little child wanted to have. And their gut is just feeling a safety system from, I like to overcome this. I like to get my own things done. They have something like an internal, you could say, discussion or fight. Now, as he last described, it's almost, I saw it this week, as well actually yesterday, said, it's almost like Elon Musk and Trump on this moment, Chris, how I feel inside. Now, if you now follow the news, you know what's happening there. And I work with her to align it. And after the session yesterday, I said, Chris, this is beautiful again, because there's something like a peace happening. And also with PTSD clients, if you ask what is my favorite ambition, I would say bring Ariana Grande or Kim Kardashian or somebody else like to me. One, because they have their own traumas, like Kim Kardashian was robbed and now in Paris. Ariana also has her own PTSD, but much more also to bring, say, the concept of three brains intelligence to the world. Because the beauty is, it's not a theory, it is science. The science proves you have 100 brain cells in your heart. That's scientifically proven by opening people. You have 500 million brain cells around in your whole viscera. So 100 million around your small intestine and other 400 million connected with all the other organs. And they can make independent decisions. They can independently remember. And that is scientifically proven, period. And if we start working from there, and then besides the spiritual world and the energy world, it makes massive changes to individuals, but also say to the whole world, right away I would say, because the moment people would align with their heart, there would be less hatred, there would be less war, there would be less violence, because violence is really a gut-brain thing, fight and fight. the fight, the flight response. Okay, sorry, I was right away getting...
No. There I must a little bit stop you because there's a so to say a slight question is coming up. You said that so many of you CEOs and the bottom line and the business people, they say, no, let's just focus on the stuff that's real, the stuff that is there. And this is then the contradiction to see what a lot of my viewers will agree on. If we all incorporate the knowledge and if we better, then we also will involve spiritually and this and that. But is it not a contradiction towards business bottom line in the current setting? So is there a conflict of message?
No, there's not a conflict of message. I would say I use the Trojan horse approach. At the moment I'm there with them, they know I'm talking about three brains. So they know it, but doesn't mean they embody it. The average person, if I ask, do you listen to your head, your heart, and your gut? The most person say, yes, of course. But saying and doing is twice. And the moment they become aware that in their decision making, they are, and that is for every person, if you do the same with three brains preference test, you become aware everybody has somewhere preference. Only a few people have a perfect balanced score that they have their three brains and they're just as dominant. But even then, in some situations are not. So you always have a dominant brain in a situation. And that is good. That is great. If there's a fire, please have your gut brain dominant that you ran out of the building. Please do so. Don't think, oh, let's analyze this first. Let's first do a good analyze what's happening here. And if the fire is really hot, because in that moment you burn it to stakes. So it makes sense to do it based on what we learned in the past, our experiences, our belief systems. Sometimes makes your brain, say, more dominant and not flexible to let the other ones in. So the moment I start coaching CEOs, they come aware, hey, I'm actually using one of my three brains. And every CEO says, Chris, that does not really sound smart if I'm really always listening to one, is it? And I said, now this is a question probably I should not confirm with you because then I say that actually you're not smart. So I will postpone to answer this. And of course they start laughing right away. I say, Chris, yes. So they love it, but it's not say something they right away know because it's out of the scope. If you say to somebody, by the way, do you know you have actually scientifically three brains? People say, no, we don't know that. And they always ask, is that true? I said, listen to my sentence, scientifically proven. It's not something I made up on 3 o'clock on Saturday night after having a heavy dinner. So it is not known. So there's not an incongruence in messaging. It's much more in the business world. And if you go to the average MBA or to a top-notch MBA to say it even worse, they're not in that real. They're not in there. And when you talk about spiritual, if you talk about energy, that is something no MBA will touch. But your heart can be measured 9 meters outside of your body based on electromagnetic energy. And if you have research, you see research that nuns who live in a monastery synchronize the period because the bodies some are synchronized based on how they communicate with each other. And everybody in their world, if I say, did it ever happen to you? You entered a room where a bunch of people were there, whatever it is, and you came in and someone says like, hey, I sense the atmosphere is strange. And everybody says, yes. I know that from a party I went to or this or a business meeting. I said, okay, so how do you sense that? Do you smell it? Because nobody said something. You could not see all the eyes and get all their stories. So it's somewhere an interpretation of something that you received. And that's actually energy. Because every cell in our body emits energy. But that's what you don't teach on MBAs or in universities because that is, say, less tangible, although it is all around us. So it's not strange, only they're not well known with it. But the moment they get known with it, they love it. Because then on that moment they come aware, hey, wow, I can now use my 3 brains, Chris. That means I outperform most of my colleagues because they use 1 brain. I'm there. It's almost like they have a turbo in their engine. So that's why I say I use this Trojan horse.
And it's so funny that you're saying it because I think you're a third, fourth guest from that same background that uses the Trojan horse analogy. So that is really, really funny that it is something that is coming up and a lot of people have understood. They want to bring this forward. They know it, that people will highly profit from using the knowledge, but it just cannot come in the front door So people trying to find different ways to tempt, either in education or in top business coaching and other areas, hoping that this will bring a mind change. But then I have to ask you, if you have a minute to spare, what would then be your vision if MBA schools, Harvard, whatnot, will start teaching these things? How would you imagine that a world of tomorrow would look, where every basic management training will include such a knowledge? What would transform?
Okay, beautiful question. And you would say, you come my vision and my big dream. To make it simple, do one step back. If you look at the three brains, the head is all about logic. It is the only part of a body that knows next week and last week, so it can do cause and effect analysis. It can predict. Now, where do we feel love? The heart. The heart releases oxytocin also. It's the love maker. It's the bonder. It is the one that just doesn't like to have a fight. It doesn't like to be rejected. Now, where's our gut instinct? Now, that is me, myself, and I. And that's the fight and flight response. That makes you win. That makes you Usain Bolt, who runs the 100 meters in 9.85 seconds. That is really the toughie. In most MBAs, they teach actually based on the curriculum to train your gut brain. You have to win, you have to be the best, you have to get A's. And a lot of logic is in there because they stuff your beautiful head with all kind of marketing, finance, and all kind of stuff. The heart brain is less educated because even in, I really like the AI Business School. It is a good one, but they have the program just like they have in Harvard. We stuff much more in the curriculum than people can do. So they have to make a decision what is need to do and nice to do, what makes sense. So they train almost people constantly on stress management, choose what is urgent, what's important. But based on that, collaboration is minimized. Because if I'm going to help you, Philip, to explain you something for 1 hour, it will cost me 1 hour of doing my own studies. So collaboration is not taught there. So if you now look at the world, so we have a logical world and we have a world that's me, myself, and I. As an example, I just came out of Qatar, where I train a leadership training for a joint venture between Total Energies and Qatar Energies. I'm going back to the plane and you have to go with the train to another kind of terminal. And there, just before the train, and it's really interesting to see, the train says we're going to leave in 1 or 2 minutes, the train is there, and there's a person lying on the floor, next to a pillar, with his head like this, his arm like this, and his phone next to his left hand, or right, actually the other way around, right hand, doesn't matter. And while I'm going down the staircase, I'm seeing the person, and I first think, hey, the person is sleeping there. That's strange that people are sleeping here in Qatar. And everybody walks around. It goes in the train because, they like to get the train to the other terminal. And I'm standing there. I'm really thinking, what is happening here? Nobody even, that I look at the guy and just walk by. So I also look at the guy. I look around if there's somebody, and I was talking next to a person next to me, from, hey, should we do something? And said, oh, but there's something like a guard. Let's point him out. So we wave at the guard. And the guard is like, come here. And now he walks to the person. And in that moment, we decide actually also to go into the train. And while we step into the train, I'm talking to the guy, said, isn't it strange that we see somebody lying there who probably needs help, but we don't check if he needs help, but he's lying in a position that's normal and has his phone not in his hand, but on the floor. So we could assume something happened, and everybody steps in the train and doesn't do anything. Yeah, we could say we waved the guard, but we also stepped in the train because we didn't like to miss the train. And the whole little trip to the train, I was like, did I do enough or not? And that's actually the heart brain talking. So I felt guilty. Because in my opinion, I should have at least do something more than just wave to somebody and hoping that something would happen. How would the world change when you question? If everybody would listen to his heart, then not everybody would have stepped in that train, but at least more people would have done something. And in the business world, it means we would not have toxic leadership. I need a promotion. Philip likes to have promotion. If I now just put some gossip in there that Philip's actually not so nice, then I get a promotion. Toxic leadership. So the world would actually then create that people listen when they make a decision. Is it logical? Does it help me? And is it actually good for the people around me and for the environment around me? And that last question, we pitifully ask too less. What's the consequence for other people? So if they would teach it on MBAs and in leadership, that moral question of their own values would actually be in the equation to make a decision. It doesn't mean that we sometimes would choose for ourselves, because that's still totally allowed. But at least we would be aware of the consequence of the decision.
Of course, this conversation, which will end here, would bring us so much further in a very complex questions of capitalism and because if we look at, especially in Europe, small and quite big size, 100% family-run companies where like the owners have 100% of the stakes, they quite often make quite moral decisions that maybe even a little bit hurt their business, keeping maybe more employees because they want to support the village. And they know they lose a bit of bottom line, but they're also proud being the big businessman of the village. And, on Sunday church, they get the first row because, they're somebody. But, there's a price to be paid for that kind of a privilege. And then if we look at companies that are public, then there is no place for such kind of deliberation. Every top manager will come up with a conversation like this, that, maybe let's activate our heart and this and that. So we need this change. And maybe you're right. If we would bring it to the schooling, into education, and build a generation from the ground up, it could help. But I've heard the theory, and so to finish this part of the conversation, I heard the theory that most likely strong ecological events will be the ones that are actually going to force us to make this more conscious decision or embed this.
Absolutely, you're right. And just the last word on that. There was already a book, Good to Great, from the Gallup organization 15 years ago, and it shows actually that the leaders I actually describe give the best return on investment in the long run. And what's the main difference? The gut brain delivers direct results, quarterly results, because they just use the whip more and more and more. In long term, none of those managers last more than 3 to 5 years, because they really squeeze the whole lemon to the last drop.
Yes.
If you have a more heart brain or 3 brains thing, you have a long run thing. And I'm coaching an amazing international risk manager who's in charge of international risk management of an insurance company. He's already, you could almost say 10 years, the number 1 potential, the highest rankings. Why is that? Because actually he does 3 brains leadership. His team, he has the best engagement score of his teams. He got the best engagement. And why is that? His CEO of International trusts him to do so. So they gave him the trust to build it. So not from, hey, in 3 months it has to be done. And already 10 years he's outperforming everybody else. So it shows that it can be true. But only then you have to get your short scopers from 3 months to maybe 1 year. And that's...
And there always have, I always in this moment say my naive little dream of a small boy in Vienna, that any kind of bonuses given in stock auctions, that managers should just be able to sell them after 10, 20 and 30 years respectively. That would be more likely like a family run business, because they would have a long-term interest in the prosperity of the company. And a lot of decisions might be made different if they think that they can only sell their stock options in 30 years from now. But it's a small dream of mine.
No, but it is true. If they would say they become something like your pension fund, and people would work there, they would have a totally different scope, because then think, hey, I have to invest in a company that over 10 years, 20 years, it's still flourishing. And that will give a totally different focus. And you can see in football, yesterday was the Champions League last week, Alex Ferguson from Manchester United, who's the most famous coach in the UK, was 7 or 8 years coach of Liverpool. And you could say he was an inclusive coach. He was sweet for his players, strong for his players, but he played all the 3 games. We have to be logic, we have to be sweet, and sometimes we have to be tough. And it made him a long run great trainer. And you can see that happening. So yeah, it makes sense, and I really would sign up for your dream, Philipp, to make it a 30-year plan.
It would be wonderful. All right, so I'm more and more getting a little bit sad that we'll have the time to go in your more than exciting life. That would be a podcast on its own.
We make a new podcast if you like it, Philip. I'm totally open for it. I love the conversation. And I know there's a lot of things always we can share from different kind of perspectives.
Because you have such a strong life story, such a dynamic life story with up and downs. And then all of it in the end collected the knowledge that you have today and that you can share and that you can give to others. And that's always this is my problem with the world right now. People like you, people like me, and so many others, we went up, we went down, we went left, we went right. Some went more up, some went less up, but we have scarves on our heart, our soul, and we overcome these things. And now we're talking from a point of compassion and experience. But there is a new trend that I've been observing the last couple of years where it's very slick, very over-professional, no mistakes, no wrong steps. Everything is so tight. And this basically is the contradiction of what you're preaching, because they must probably they cut all the hearts and they're just technocrats. And I'm worried for the world in which direction it's going if there's so much technocratic leadership.
It makes sense. And if you look at personal people, I would always say everybody knows Tinder or whatever kind of thing, or Instagram or whatever kind of social media, is now all about the outside. We make a picture of ourselves and then we're going to actually Photoshop it so we both look better. So we're going to remove our wrinkles, we make a smile a little bit bigger, and why? But it is now a trend in there, you're right, and we have scars. And about the scars, and I had yesterday in my training a discussion about it, when people say, Chris, you got a heart surgery last year, you live extremely healthy, and my metabolic age is 44, 15 years younger than I am, and you still had the heart surgery because you had a genetic malfunctioning heart valve. So how do you deal with that? Because that's, you could almost say, unfair. And I say, some things in life we could label as unfair. And then I right away think of Viktor Frankl's, of existentialism. I was not happy with it. Let's make it clear. And there was a few months, less happy person on this world, especially when I had to do my surgery. Now, that's also not the most happiest person in this world. But I always say life gives you lessons. And I like to what did I learn from this out of it? How does it make me whatever better means, a better human? And so for me, all the scars we have are not only something to be showing off. Look at my scar. Is your scar bigger than mine, Philip? Let's compare scar. It's not about competition. It's more, hey, what did you learn from your scar, Philip? And how did it transform you in becoming actually a more whole person? And what always keeps me, and probably also you say somewhere, still smiling, is that I believe that the scars, if you use them as a learning, we become better people. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, Nietzsche said. But actually also, if you learn from it, you become a better person. So right. Yes, and the ups and downs.
Exactly, this is, you almost took my last question, basically, or the last chapter, because I'm always very fascinated by spirituality, the way I see it, and whatever you transform it, and how little, how much you do in your coaching, which I think is quite a lot anyway, but let's say how little, how much. What always fascinates me is the inward-outward motion. And I'm sure you're very keen aware of it, that you maybe read a book, or you do a coaching, you do all of these things. So you have this inward process, and then you flip it to the outside. And I'm always very keen how people address this inward-outside motion. And so my last question basically would be to talk a little bit what mechanisms you have in place, how you check in, how you observe over time your coaching, how this inward-outward process continues, because sometimes people are very motivated during the coaching. They're very motivated to learn something new, to get all of this excitement. But the real quality of a coach, if I may say so, is the implementation to make it stick for a extended period of time. And also within this question, do you look at things like maybe, cleaning up rivers or giving back to community, to also implement these things? Is this part of your idea, the pledge of giving and stuff like that? Is this stuff that you address if it's appropriate to feed back the inner growth with the outer growth? So these are the questions. You take what you like.
And by the way, first, I like to say, I cannot agree with you more that it's almost an obligation of a coach to create long-lasting change. And not in all my slides, when I do a presentation for whatever, a kind of organization, I always say, you have success rates and happiness rates. Happiness rate is, oh, how happy am I with this podcast? Or with this coaching? The success rate is after 1 year, did it still has an impact on you? And success rate is for most high. There's a happiness rate is for most things high, but success rate is low. Psychology, 35%. McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting Group, 41% maximum in culture change projects. Coaching, 55% in long run. Hypnotherapy,
Maximum.
55.
Yeah.
All maximums, eh? Success change after a year. That, for me, that is, if my dentist would say, my average success rate in replacing a filling is 55%, I would right away run away. If my heart surgeon would have said my success rate is 55% to do a proper job in doing the operation, I would have said, no, you're not going to put a knife in me. So we find that 100%, almost 100% accuracy in ordering at Amazon, doing shopping online, going to the grocery store, finding a professional is normal, except in the soft skill world. So for me, that is top notch what you say. And how do I check in? And that's what I really love from the three brains. Logically, a lot of clients say in the old way from if it's now consultancy, psychology, coaching, they say logically, yes, of course, I will make an action list. And the action list we do on the 1st of January. Okay, I'm going to eat less, drink less, sleep more, be more nice to my kids and my wife, balance my work, balance life. Within 2 weeks, more than 95% skips it. Because it's a logical decision. There is no backup from the heart or the gut that says, we have to go through these kind of little changes. So when I do coaching or therapy or work with people in general, I always check in if the three brains say yes. And when you really check in if the three brains say yes, and then now it's not like, hey, does your heart, head, and gut say yes? Philip, of course, they say, how do you mean they say yes? It is a little bit more, you say, complicated than that. When you see that happening, there's a total alignment in the client. Yes, it is. And actually, you could almost see my belief around it changed. Then it happens, because if their beliefs change, it pulls you to the new direction right away. Most people try to go through a belief system by repetition. Now that is having a huge stone going uphill. The moment you change your belief, it's almost like going downhill with that stone. The stone just rolls by itself. So that's a check-in. And if that happens in the other side of the thing, then change lasts. And then you see after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, people still do it. Sometimes, especially in Australia, because I moved there 4 or 5 years ago now, and I talk to people who I saw in my training and did therapy work on each other. They say, Chris, do you still remember the training of when you did in 2015? I said, wow, that's 10 years ago. Help me a little bit. We worked on this topic. Oh, yeah. How are you doing with that? It's amazing. Since that session, it's still changed. Already 10 years, Chris. And I was like, oh, wow. I still have an oh, wow feeling from, oh, wow. So it works. And so, so it's a check-in. Secondly, bring back to say, whatever you do now. So for myself, I love to do the good things. But based on what you already said, we both have so many things on our little plate that, now, what happens? But if we coach people, train people to be like this, they're starting doing much more great things. The person I said that international risk CEO has in his team in Budapest where he works, does massive things of giving back to the community also. So his whole team there has every month, half a day or 1 day, voluntarily, they help to clean up, they help to do this, they help to do this. So they bring a culture of, hey, it's not only earning money as an insurance company, it's also giving back to the community. So he leads that way. So for me, I love to coach people and train people, start rippling out around you.
At the end, this is the key what you just said, because this I can believe. If you do the inner work, it has to be related to outside action so that we have the proof of concept. And when you as a team leader motivate them or go further and say, do some cleaning from time to time or do some of this work, this is when it becomes real to that inner process that you have done. And it just speaks to the quality of the things that you do, that you were even consider thinking about it. Because I talk to a lot of people where this is not even part of the equation. They do that the thing, they beat up the brain, they multiply the brain, they do all the brain smarties, and et voila.
Now, for me, I always say it in every training, and I was now in Qatar training, and I say, if I explain myself who I am, I always say my last sentence is, my mission or vision in this life is to leave this world a better place than I found it. And it means for all of us. So I like to motivate people, make this world a better place, because your kids, your grandkids, somewhere they will ask you, what did you do? What is your answer? Now, I accumulated a lot of money. Okay, and what did you do for the rest? No, nothing, but I have a beautiful house, beautiful car, a massive bank account in Switzerland, not in Austria, but in Switzerland, your neighbor country. Yeah. And how does it help us? Nothing. Yeah, but the beauty is, and we all know it, in the last days of your life, you rather have your friends around you than a huge bank account. But pitifully, most people only realize it in the last days on this earth. And it would be so beautiful if they come aware of it at this age. And that's also my mission. Come aware what you would say in your last days of your life.
Absolutely. Well, this is a wonderful ending for this 1 hour conversation that I wish this for all of us to constantly, and I could not agree with you more than I can possibly anybody agree. It's one of the things that I'm saying for years to myself. Be ready every day to go with a smile and have your house in order in so many legally and mentally and emotionally. Don't leave anything unsaid. Don't forget to thank everyone so that when it's time to go, that you have your house in order.
That makes so much sense. And I always find that what's the easiest thing we can do. And I would right away encourage everybody who's listening to you, let a smile be your umbrella. So when you go out and go have a coffee or do something, just smile to people. It will change right away already the energy in the field. And it is so amazing. And it is free. And by the way, if you smile, it releases also oxytocin in your own body. And oxytocin is extremely beautiful, helps you to boost your immune system. So smiling helps to boost your own immune system. And it's free. And you make other people happy now. So that would be, say, my cheapest advice to everybody else. And we Dutch love cheap.
And it's a very Dutch thing to say.
Absolutely. That's why I say it's so Dutch. It's cheap. It's free. Come on.
It's such a Dutch thing. Because when I was living in Vienna way back, and everybody was grumpy in Vienna, we are famous for being grumpy. And I had a friend who was Dutch, and he was running for the city with a smile. And people couldn't help it. I mean, he just attacked them with a smile. And yes, he lighted up every room he was in because he's just the way is that. And it is so effective, that's for sure. We could talk for hours. That is absolutely clear. And I'm sure we scratched half of the stuff that you would like to say. I will put all the information, everything down there on the link. But we've just nearly scratched the surface of the depth of your knowledge and things that you do.
Philip, that just means I'm going to stalk you to want to be one day on your podcast in a couple of months. So be aware of that.
That would be very lovely. I like to be stalked. Thank you so very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Philip.